Hey everyone, I wanted to hop on and take a second to talk about some transitions that are going to be happening with the podcast over the next few months. The first of which is transitioning into off-season content. With this off-season content, I want to help you guys prepare as best as you can for next season, so make sure to stay tuned and check out the upcoming off-season content. Then at the end of the year, I'll be announcing some changes in scheduling for the upcoming 2023 season. So make sure to stay tuned and check that out as well. For now, we have an upcoming episode with Seth Munsey from Disc Golf Strong. Seth is actually the very first interview I recorded on the podcast, so that's awesome. But what that also means is that some of the audio quality in this isn't as good. I did my best to clean it up, and I hope you guys enjoy this episode.
Welcome to the Disc Golf Prescription Podcast, your weekly dose of disc golf. Hello and welcome back to the Disc Golf Prescription Podcast. I am your host, John Nicholson. And I have special guest today, Mr. Disc Golf Strong himself, Seth Munsey. How's it going today, Seth?
I am doing great, Jonathan. Thanks so much for having me on your podcast, and I'm really excited to be here.
Absolutely. For those of you who do not know Seth, actually, I will let you introduce it yourself. I know you as more of like a strength and conditioning guy. Obviously, you have a role with the Disc Golf Pro Tour now, but can you tell me more about your strength and conditioning background?
Yeah, so my strength and conditioning background, I went to Cal State Fullerton in California. I got my degree in exercise science, kinesiology, my bachelor's there. I was working as a personal trainer before that in a gym, and then decided I was in the military before, so I used the VA, the GI Bill to go through school and get my degree. Graduated from Cal State Fullerton, summa cum laude. Really had a great experience there. They're a great kinesiology college, a great program there. While I was there, I had an amazing opportunity to work for the Anaheim Ducks, the NHL team, as their intern strength coach. So it was myself and the strength coach, the head strength coach there. I worked with them in season, preseason, training camp, off-season training. Just had a lot of great first-hand experience with the team. We were right in there working with the players every single day that they did their training. And then after that, I went and opened up my own training facility up in Northern California, and I had that for 4 years. So I worked with every type of athlete, from the recreational athlete, that's the parents with the kids, all the way down, to the high school athlete, because everyone's an athlete. I mean, being a human just requires you to do athletic moves, right? Yeah, every single day. And had a great time there. During that whole time, I taught for a couple different fitness organizations. I taught at spoke at some conferences, some workshops, led workshops. I was a master instructor for a couple different organizations. So really helping, trying to elevate the level of training with the strength conditioning professionals, the personal trainers, all that. And then outside of after that, while I had my gym, Iron Republic was what it was called. I was playing disc golf heavily and really enjoyed the sport. And in 2015, I was just looking at, seeing a lot of my fellow friends out there, my card mates and stuff I was playing with. They were not getting the results that they wanted with, the performance on the course. They were suffering from injuries. I thought, you know what? Hey, I have a training facility. I have a background. I've worked in rotational sports on professional level. And I looked and no one was talking about anything related to performance or recovery or anything in disc golf, not even warm-ups. So I thought, you know what? I think there's stuff I want to share. I want to help this community that I love so much, disc golf community. Help people be more resilient, help people achieve their goals. Help them try to stay away from injuries as much as they can. And so I created Disc Golf Strong in 2015, launched it in 2016, and started working from there and up to where I am now.
That is awesome. So obviously we know each other.
Yep.
I knew several of those things about you, but I've never actually gotten to ask you about it. So this is great hearing that. What's really funny is I started playing disc golf in August of 2017, and I have a strength and conditioning background as well. That's why we get along so well, I think, too.
Yeah.
But one of the first things I did was I checked to see if anybody was doing that in disc golf, because I was interested in maybe starting something like that, because I became addicted to disc golf right away.
Absolutely.
And I was like, oh, this guy, Disc Golf Strong, is doing it. And I started looking at your stuff, and I was like, who's this guy? And then I was like, oh, he's good. Oh, he puts in a lot of effort too. I don't think I could put out a better product than that. So I really admired your work right away as soon as I got into the sport. So this is awesome.
Yeah, it's been a great journey to, starting from seeing nothing in the sport to now, having professionals like me and you, you're in talking, you're excited about strength and conditioning, you're excited about, performance in sports and disc golf as well. And so my current role now with the Disc Golf Pro Tour, I've been partnering with the Disc Golf Pro Tour since like 2017, 2018, been traveling since 2017 with disc golf. And then I was partnering with them. Then in 2021, as we were coming back from the pandemic, they just, Pro Tour offered me a role. They wanted me to come on just full time as the Director of Health and Sports Performance and also the Safety Director for the sport. And so it's been really great to try to help make an impact where I can in professional disc golf. And then I chair the PDGA Medical Committee. So from the professional side, because they govern over the professional as well, but also the amateur side, what we can do on health and performance and also safety, because a lot of my background before that was like ambulance, search and rescue, stuff like that. So I try to bring all that into how I work with the athletes, how I work with, policies, all that stuff. So it's been really cool to see the progression of the sport.
That's awesome. And it's progressed so quickly in the last few years too.
Absolutely.
So that is fantastic. I guess obviously that's a lot about your background and strength and conditioning and everything like that. The reason I wanted to interview you so bad for this podcast is part of it I want to be about, obviously I told you, becoming a better disc golfer, helping people become better disc golfers. Well, with my background and what I've seen and experienced, I think having some sort of plan or exercise routine, strength training routine, mobility, whatever categories you want to put there is absolutely essential to it.
Yep.
And so I just wanted to pick your brain about it a little bit.
Let's do it.
Well, I said it was essential to it. Obviously, I think you would agree that strength training is essential to like disc golf performance. What are some ways you believe that strength training or exercise with disc golf helps your performance?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it helps in so many ways. There's the strength and performance. There's the performance side of disc golf, like how much farther can I throw? How much more accurate? Am I? How much more consistent am I? Right? There's those kind of qualities that are enhanced by strength and conditioning, but also really important is the resiliency. We can't stop injuries from happening. I mean, even the people in the NHL, the NFL, I mean, they get injuries, non-contact injuries,
Absolutely.
Right? And they've got access to millions of dollars worth of stuff to make sure that they don't get injured and they get injured. So it's hard to stop an injury completely from happening, but we can become more resilient against that. So making sure that, you're putting a little work into your mobility, into your stability, into your strength, things like that. It is all going to help you be a more resilient disc golfer, right? And I get people to say, hey, Seth, I'm not a professional. I don't necessarily need to throw farther. I don't really care about that. And I'm like, well, that's okay. Maybe do you want to throw longer? As like in longer, like you want longevity in the sport, right? Because I remember when before I officially came out with Disc Golf Strong, I was just doing research, and there was a study, I know you've seen it, it's like 81, it was a survey
the only
on the
one.
sport, right? Yeah, showed about an 81% injury rate in our sport after, I think it was around between 700 and 800 disc golfers, maybe a little more than 800 disc golfers were surveyed about, have you actually experienced an injury in our sport while playing disc golf? And 81%, that is an extremely high rate. So really what I've been focused on the last couple of years is trying to help people become stronger, healthier, more resilient humans, and by doing that, become stronger, healthier, more resilient disc golfers, right? So we start as, how do we make you a better moving, better functioning, more resilient human? And then that's going to translate into disc golf, right? And I think that's really important and something that I've really tried to stay focused on from the very beginning, is because in performance, in elite athletic performance, the stuff that is shown oftentimes on social media is the stuff that's going to get the most likes.
Yep.
Right? And so it's going to get the most engagement. And so people look at that and be like, oh, that NHL player is doing that single leg thing on a stability ball while, having a barbell on their back. Like, maybe I should do that if I want better balance.
Yeah.
Right? I want more stability. So let me do that, right? That person is probably doing that for the camera, and the coach is probably sitting there holding the camera going, please do not fall.
Don't hurt yourself.
Please do not get injured, because I will no longer work in this sport if you do.
Yeah.
Right? Because working in professional sports with some of the best athletes in the world, I walked in there as a college student thinking, man, I'm going to see some of the craziest things. They're going to be doing the most advanced, unbelievable exercises ever. We're doing half kneeling work. We're doing half Turkish get-ups. We're doing half kneeling presses. We were doing, planks, side planks. We were not doing crazy stuff because the strength and conditioning coach there, Sean Skane, who was then with the Minnesota Wild after that for a long time, he was like, these are professional athletes, not professional exercisers, and there's risk versus reward. So we need to have low risk, high reward with whatever exercise we do. But also it comes down to the fundamentals. It comes down to, are you able to be a well-functioning human versus before you can do all the crazy stuff, right? And so that's, again, what I've been really focused on in this sport, is trying to put out that, hey, like, we don't need to go super crazy if we want to improve our performance. We don't need to go super intense if we want to improve our resiliency. Like, we have to start at the building blocks. Like, we don't just go out and throw drivers. Like, if anyone came up to us and said, hey, I just started the sport, here's a speed 13 driver, like, how do I get better? We'd be like, put that down, stop, pick up a putter, right? Throw a standstill, like, start from the fundamentals. And it's the same thing, as you know, as like building human performance. It's like, okay, let's see if you can do this stuff. Like, let's all do the fundamentals. And if we do the fundamentals really well, then let's progress the fundamentals and then progress the fundamentals, but they're still fundamentals, and work our way up, right? And so that's what I've been trying to focus on. And so doing all that will help you in those goals that you talked about. Is like, how do we help people become a better, healthier disc golfer? Is like fundamentals, working from the ground up, all that.
No, absolutely. And one thing you touched on there is, but like being a better human or moving better, those types of things are so unbelievably helpful for you. But I think a lot of things people don't realize as well on the pro level, or people aspiring to be professional disc golfers. I don't think a lot of people realize that playing that much disc golf is not inherently good for you.
No.
Like any sport, any professional athlete, you are pushing things past the point of being fitness and health. It becomes more into the overuse territory because you're using the same movement patterns over and over. And so I know a lot of people, 81% according to that survey, experience issues and things like that. And another thing I really admire you for, and the Disc Golf Pro Tour for as well, is providing tools for recovery. So could you talk a little bit more about ways that you, I guess, advise people to recover, or different things you use for recovery?
Yeah, absolutely. First to what you were mentioning there is, before that is, people want to get better in our sport. They want to be able to perform better, but they do that many times in the way of overworking themselves.
Mhm.
Right. I said this one time in talking to somebody back in 2016, and I feel like I've said it over 1,000 times now since, is the best thing about disc golf is you can play every day, and the worst thing about disc golf is you can play every day. Right.
You said that to me.
Yeah, exactly. Right? You done, right? So, and another thing that I've said often and think about often is that someone once asked me, they said, what's the number one injury in our sport? I said, it's the overuse injury.
Mm-hmm.
It can show up in the shoulder, it can show up in the hips, it can show up in the knee, it can show up in multiple places, but it's the overuse injury.
Yeah.
Because, a professional baseball pitcher, if you said, hey, I want you to take this bucket of 100 balls and I want you to throw them as hard as you can 7 days a week, they'd be like, no way. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, it's crazy, right? They would never think about that, because part of being an athlete is not just doing the work, but recovery is actually work.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's if you want to be a well-balanced athlete, you need to take your recovery as serious as the other stuff, right? And we don't think about that often. We think about if we're not out there throwing, then we're not becoming a better disc golf athlete, and that's not true, because if two disc golfers enter into a tournament and one has just been blowing themselves out every day, all day long, leading up to first tee on Friday morning, and the other one has been very conscious about not only their workload but also their rest and recovery, they're going to show up less fatigued and they're going to be able to perform better. So taking the recovery is important, right? And like Bruce Lee was not just all like punches and kicks. Like Bruce Lee was meditation and mindfulness and like recovery and breathing, and like if people everyone wants to do what Bruce Lee did, but not very many people want to do what Bruce Lee did. It's like
Yeah.
he did that just as much as he did the other stuff, if not even more. Because he knew he needed to be in a state where he could focus on performance and not just trying to. I'm just trying to get to the finish line. Now, to your question about recovery. When it comes to recovery, so we have recovery at the Performance Zone on tour, and we have foam rollers, we have massage guns, right? We have players that are able to go through little routines I can give them to just work on a little bit of mobility, some stability work. But a big thing is breathing. When it comes down to recovery, though, it's also about the fundamentals first. It's huge about the fundamentals. A mentor of mine and a friend of mine, his name is Dan John. He's a very successful strength coach. You're probably familiar with him, right? I've trained at his house. Like I've done a lot of stuff with Dan in the past, and he would joke about where he would say, someone comes in and he's smoking a cigarette and he's got a bottle of beer in his hand, and he's like, hey, I want to be better. Like, should I put quinoa in my cereal, or should I, and he's like, well, let's talk about to get rid of the cigarettes first. Let's talk about the beer first when you're trying to recover, and then we'll talk about what's in your oatmeal, put quinoa in your oatmeal. Like, so it's the fundamentals first, because I'll get people that say, hey, should I do ice baths every night? Should I use these kind of supplements? Should I do this and this and this? I'm like, okay, well, so first, how's your sleep? And like, oh man, my sleep is horrible.
5 hours of that.
Okay, so your sleep's horrible. Okay, how much are you hydrating throughout the day? I could definitely do better than
hydration.
That. Hydration, you got it. You're drinking water right now, right? So, so people are like, oh man, I'm not hydrated as much. Okay, how's your stress levels? Man, it's been tough. It's been a grind, this and that. So, are you doing any meditation or just mindfulness work, any breath work? No. Okay, before we talk about ice baths, and those are great, before we talk about even foam rolling or anything, let's go to the sleep first.
Yeah.
Because if you're not getting good quality sleep, doesn't matter what else you do. Doesn't matter if you sprinkle quinoa into your oatmeal, right? You're going to not be able to recover. If your stress levels are super high and you're breathing up in your chest and your shoulders, your body's not going to be able to go into that parasympathetic, more that rest, recovery, rest and digest state, right? If your body is not hydrated well, then your body's not going to be able to recover well. So those are the first fundamentals of recovery. right? So if you're listening and you're like, I want to work on my recovery, start with those things. Now you can get a foam roller; those are great. You can get a massage gun. I love those things, but you got to go to the fundamentals first, and then add those. And you can add those at the same time. Doesn't mean you can't like foam roll. Learn how to foam roll while you're getting better sleep. But it's like those are the building blocks first, right? And I'm all about building blocks. People that watch my social media stuff, if you look at Instagram and stuff, you're like, man, does this guy ever train? Yes, it's training building blocks first, right? A mutual friend of ours, Bobby Brown, he used to work for DD. He's amazing, and I remember years ago he did the marketing for DD, and he is like probably 2017. And he's like, hey, can you? We'd love to work with you on doing some videos that we can release. And I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. So I sent him a couple of videos of exercises, and they were all body weight exercises. They were all stuff you can do anywhere. And he's like, I remember he's like, oh, this is great. He goes, so do you like use resistance? Do you use lows and stuff? I'm like, oh, absolutely. I said, but I want people to look at this video, push their chair away from the table, get down and start doing something right now. Yeah. I'd not be like, oh, I got to go to the gym first. So Steph says I got to go buy expensive equipment first, because just like recovery, your health and performance, you got to get those building blocks first. If you're going to drive if I put someone in a high performance race car, and I'm like, hey, I want you to drive this race car around the track. It goes 200 miles per hour. The engine's fired up. It's ready to go. And you're like, sweet, I'm going to drive this 200 miles per hour track. Right before you head out, I'm like, hey, Jonathan, just a heads up. The left front tire is slightly deflated a little bit. The brakes have been kind of wonky, and the steering linkage is just a little loose. Go. Are you going to drive 200 miles per hour? No, you're going to be freaked out. You're going to be driving 30 miles per hour. Wondering, what am I even doing in this thing, right? Our brain's going to be the same way, is those fundamental building blocks of like, okay, is my mobility good? Like, is the hip stability, can I even stabilize my hips, right? So before I do some crazy exercise, let me make sure my brain feels comfortable with my hips doing that exercise. I guess all that, what I'm saying, I know that's more than recovery, but it all coming back to fundamentals, building blocks first, and then you build on that, whether it's recovery, whether it's performance.
Yep, that's one thing I always admire about you as well. You keep a lot of people humble, including myself, because I'll ask about something and you're like, it's always like, well, are you doing these things first? And it's like it's very, very important to do those building blocks, those fundamentals, in order to build performance on top of it. Because I think anybody can see if you just build performance with nothing on top of it, that's exactly where you find injury. Yeah, that's the recipe for injury.
Absolutely. And the thing is, we see a professional athlete on social media or some sort of ESPN 30x30s. They're doing some crazy exercise. One thing we got to remember is that person has had access to excellent coaching since they were probably in junior high or high school. Maybe it wasn't excellent coaching in high school and junior high, but they're doing the best they can. But they at least had some sort of coaching in football or baseball, whatever, right? Strength coaching. Strength coaching is at those levels are getting much better. When I was in high school in the 90s, it was like our coach was also like the history teacher who just liked to lift. Right now, like they're actually getting like strength and conditioning professionals in high school sports and younger, right?
That's a CS.
Yeah, exactly, right. And so but those people that are doing those crazy exercises, maybe the risk is really high, and the reward isn't that low. Is pretty low, at least for that person's performance. Maybe the social media, the reward's very high.
Yeah.
So
fair.
So that's why they're doing it, right? But at least that strength coach knows, and that athlete knows, like that athlete could be successful in those positions because they have literally been doing this for decades.
Yeah.
Over a decade, right? But in disc golf, we're still in that stage where people are still learning how to move their body in ways that that NFL player was doing in high school.
Yeah.
Because people didn't have access to coaching. Like most high schoolers, if you're not in sports, you don't have like personal trainers. You're not going to a gym where you're getting taught how to, hip hinge correctly, the mechanics of single leg work. You're not taught all that stuff. You're not worked through all that stuff. So most people, they're like, oh, but I'm 30 something years old. I see a 25-year-old NFL player doing that move. Maybe I should be able to do it. But if you haven't, they've gone through so much coaching under watchful eyes to make sure their technique is good, so they can play around in that realm a little more safely than most other people can play around in that realm, right?
I absolutely agree with that. Well, thank you for all of that. Switching gears just slightly, this is a topic I don't hear people talk about very much, and I've never actually asked you your opinion on this, so I'm curious.
Okay.
Do you think people who are serious about disc golf should have an off-season that is more focused on training than it is on disc golf itself?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You should take a period of time off to where you're focused on the other qualities of what it is to be a disc golfer. And I hear people, and I understand where they're coming from. I'm a disc golfer too. I love playing disc golf. But so to think about like a month or 2 or 3 to like not play disc golf, it doesn't mean that you can't work on other qualities of disc golf. You can't, doesn't mean you can't be like, what, I'm going to just do some, kneeling utility shots, like half kneeling utility shots, getting out of the woods or something, there's other things you can work on, but you should have a time where you're not throwing and you're focused on the other stuff. A professional disc golfer absolutely should have an off season. A recreational disc golfer should have an off season. If they're not playing as much as a professional disc golfer, maybe they can get away with it of playing year round. I know that I grew up in California near the beach, and so you could throw a frisbee every single day. Yeah. But so there is a portion of the states and especially overseas. There's no part of Estonia where in December you can go to the beach and throw frisbees. You're in snow. Yeah. So there, in the United States, we have that ability where there's parts where people are playing year round, and there's people that have kind of like an off season where it's a forced off season. I know people do play in the snow and stuff, but obviously it's not going to be as much. They're not going to go get 2 rounds a day and every day they're in the snow. But they should have an off season where they're focused on those other qualities, because they're finding now. I mean, they're not finding now. It's becoming more public now because people are strength coaches are getting more vocal about this. They feel more empowered, I guess, to speak out against year-round sports. When I was with the Ducks, our strength coach, like we were in the off season, we were working with players, and we also had he ran a training camp where we had youth players. So we had NHL players. The NHL guys would come in at like 8 a.m., 9 a.m. would be the college guys or the AHL teams. We'd have like the high schoolers and stuff, like 10:30. Right? So there was one kid, and his parents worked at the ice skating rink so that like he could skate every day. And they had him in year round. He was doing stuff every single day. He was training in our program with me and Sean. He was had all sorts of coaches, this and that. He had knee issues going on. He was like, I think he was like 13 or something. He had knee issues going on. He was hurt all the time. And I remember Sean, our coach, telling him like, hey, have you taken any time off this week? And he's like, no. He goes, you tell your parents, like, if you do not get time off this week, you are not allowed to come back and train with me. Like, he told him that. Like, he's like, he's like a Boston guy. He's got, he's like more assertive with it, right? He's like, hey, you, if they're not gonna come, if they're not gonna let you take time off, then you're not allowed to be in my program. And because youth sports, I mean, you got youth sports where now it is year round. You're in club teams, you're this, that. They're not getting any rest and being able to focus on the strength and conditioning and the other kind of stuff.
Gotcha. I want to take a second really quick and qualify some of that information.
Yeah.
So a lot of what Seth just spoke about is for people who play disc, 25 plus tournaments a year. Because if you're playing that much disc golf, your body needs some time off. Not even just time off, time doing different things so that you can, using the building block analogy, so that you can build in order to keep improving. Because by not taking time off, sometimes you can kind of cap your own capabilities. That's a lot of what we've referred to in strength training as plateaus.
Yeah.
It's very easy to plateau by just continuously banging your head against a wall instead of taking a step back from the wall, regrouping, and then moving forward.
100%. 100%. Something I tell my athletes when they get injured is that I feel like I've talked to you about this too in our conversations, is that when they get injured, saying like, hey, sometimes you have to step back in order to push forward. Like you need it's a step back into growth.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, I'm not stopping disc golf. I guess not that I'm regressing from being a disc golf athlete. It's, hey, I've got an injury right now, so I'm not going to throw with my shoulder, but I'm going to work on my mental game. I'm going to work on my nutrition. I'm going to work on my sleep. I'm going to work on, my study of courses, course design, and what kind of shots I have in my bag and what I need to get better at and all that, right? Like, so you can step back into growth, and that's that off season as well, where it's like people are like, okay, well, if I'm not playing, doesn't mean that I can't be, that I'm regressing, like I said earlier, right? As I'm stepping back, I'm taking some time off to accelerate forward in other ways. Yeah.
And by the way, as well, if you are if you're not at that, I'm arbitrarily putting the 25 tournament a year number on it. But if you're a person who plays 5, 10 tournaments a year and you do those year round, that is perfectly okay. We're just saying that if you have a very high volume of disc golf, taking some time off and focusing on all of those other super important things, especially if you're looking to be the best disc golfer you can be, is super important.
Yeah. Time off, everyone's going to get time off.
Yep.
It's whether you choose the time off or you're forced into the time off.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's
right
like,
now.
do you want to be the proactive and be like, I'm proactively taking time off so that I can stay healthy and resilient and strong and all that? Or do I want to be forced into the time off either through injury or, man, I'm just fatigued. I don't feel like I'm going out there. I don't feel like I have good, grip on the disc. I'm shanking my shots. I'm releasing early. Losing my motivation to play because I'm not getting the distance that I want. Right? That's like your central nervous system and just be, fatigued out and be like, hey, like you've been pushing way too hard, so you need to take time off. And you're forced into it because you're like, it's not even fun anymore because now I'm not getting the results. Why am I not getting the results? I play every day.
Yep.
Maybe that's the reason.
And that is exactly how burnout happens. That is the definition.
Yeah.
So we've talked about off-season training and kind of what you believe off-season training should be about for the serious disc golfer. What about in-season training? What as you shift from the off-season to in-season, how should a serious disc golfer continue their training in season?
Yeah, so the off season, that's where you're really gonna develop, work on some strength, work on some power development, work on, some plyometric stuff. And in professional disc golf, the season's so short, the off season's so short that I'll say this: when you're doing the off season training, prioritize single leg work. Prioritize, like we call unilateral. So bilateral would be both sides, right? So unilateral would be one side. So I'm doing single leg work. I'm doing pressing on one side, rowing on one side. You're going to get some extra core engagement that's going to, resist that rotational forces and stuff in your core. So because disc golf happens on one leg, disc golf happens, less more power, less deadlifting, and like bilateral deadlifting. Like people ask me like, oh, do you not like deadlifts? Do you not like barbell deadlifts? I'm like, yes, but our off season is so short and our athletes don't have a long history
of
experience of deadlifting. So in order for me to get them to where it's actually going to really benefit them much with a barbell, I'd rather do maybe a little bit of trap bar deadlift, but let's get them in a single leg deadlift because they're going to get so much. I like to check a lot of boxes with my exercises, and if my exercise is only checking one box or two boxes, like it's not as beneficial. I'm wasting time.
Yep.
Right? So I can be more efficient and check a lot of boxes like a single leg deadlift or a single half kneeling press or something like that, right? So now as you transition to in season, it doesn't need to necessarily be as different of exercises. They should focus more on some resiliency exercises, right? So people are going to stiffen up a little more. Some people are going to get a little looser. So if you find you stiffen up a little more, maybe a little more on the mobility work. If you find that your shoulders get a lot more instability in it from throwing really hard and the joints kind of getting moved around, maybe some more stability work there. Where we have it is that if there's a tournament Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday or Tuesday is going to be the heavier day. We call it like the high. It's going to be high volume or high intensity. Load.
Yeah.
Like high volume or high intensity. Yes, high load. If it's high volume, it's not going to necessarily be high load. It's going to be lower load because we're doing a lot of reps. Or it's high load, lower volume, lower load, or high volume, lower load. I'm getting
yes,
right?
I know exactly what you're getting.
You don't want to lift your max and then try to do like 20 reps of it, right?
Yep.
Like you're gonna do, if you lift very heavy, you're gonna go lower reps, right?
No 20 rep max back squats for disc golf.
No. Yeah. So you would say, okay, if I'm gonna train 2 or 3 times a week, and there's a distinction. I don't like saying workout. I know I just said it, but I like to say train. Working out, anyone can work out. Working out is, hey, my goal is to sweat. My goal is to breathe hard. My goal is to be so sore I can't sit down on a toilet, without aids. The training is purposeful, right? So if you're training 2 to 3 times a week, and you're in season, Monday, maybe Tuesday would be your higher, whatever it is, load, volume, intensity, right? Wednesday would be your moderate load.
Gotcha.
Right? Either moderate load, moderate intensity, moderate volume. Thursday or Friday, Friday morning, if you felt like it, if you had a later tea time, low intensity, low volume. Some Turkish get-ups, some bodyweight Turkish get-ups, bodyweight single leg deadlifts, things like that, just to get the blood flowing, get your body moving, ramp up the body a little bit. That could be like a Wednesday, that could be like a Thursday thing, right? So, my training is I tell the athletes to be very intuitive. Like, if you wake up Monday and you just played Worlds and you feel like trash and it's supposed to be a high volume or high intensity or high load, like that, let's be intuitive about this. If your body feels like it needs a break, then let's go to moderate.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to lose a ton of your gains by just doing moderate that week because you just spent 5 days playing Worlds.
Long courses.
Exactly. So it's got to be very intuitive, and training on a professional level is going more towards that. It's like, biofeedback and very intuitive training. Like I was for a while, we had training, not here in disc golf, but I've done it in disc golf, but where they would squeeze like a grip, dynamometer.
Yep. I think I don't know the name of it, but I'm familiar with this.
Yeah. So you would squeeze it left and right. And if it's in your range of what you normally would be in, it's like, all right, let's go train. Because people could go and they wake up and you're like, you got a bunch of work for them to do that day, and they squeeze it. And even though they feel okay, like mentally, like their grip strength is way less than what their baseline normally is. It's like, all right, we're going to cut it down a little bit today because your central nervous system, because your grip is very much connected to your central nervous system. And if it's showing that it's fatigued, it's like, let's take a recovery. Or if the person comes in like, man, I don't feel like amazing. I don't feel amazing, coach. It's like, all right, let's squeeze this. Oh, let's go PR right now, baby. Like your grip strength is like way above baseline. Let's do it. It's like, I know you don't feel like it, but your body is primed for success.
You're good to go.
Right?
I love it.
Yeah.
Perfect. shifting gears one last time.
Yep.
One thing I'm going to like to do, and by the way, I'm going to completely derail this for a second. Seth is actually my very first interviewed guest. It won't look that way to you guys, but he's my very first interviewed guest.
It's an honor.
And so thank you so much for coming and doing this with me. But one thing I'm going to be really focused on doing at the end of every episode is providing some piece of actionable advice that people can use to move forward. Because obviously, if they tried to apply everything we talked about in this interview, they're going to just be so overwhelmed they won't even know what to do, because we've touched on a lot of different subjects. But if you had one piece of advice you could recommend to somebody taking out of this interview for training in disc golf, what would it be?
Yeah, start where you are, do what you can. Like whether I work with pros, whether I work with amateurs, through my academies and stuff, it's always about starting where you are, doing what you can. Let's get the fundamentals down, and let's do what you can with the fundamentals. And so in our academies, we talk about good, better, best. Hey, if 5 minutes of mobility work is all you can do, like that's good.
Yeah,
that's good. If 10 minutes is what you can do, that's better. If you can do 20 minutes, like maybe that's your best, right? And so you say, hey, every day I wake up, I'm going to do some mobility work. I'm going to do some stability work. If I can get 5 minutes in, if I can get 2 minutes, maybe it's 1 minute. Because the big thing is that holds so many people back. Being in this industry for over a decade now, working with all types of people, and I've actually spoke on habits and behavior change at conference stuff, is one of the biggest things holding people back is they feel like there's this message in the health and fitness, like if you want to make improvements in your life, in your health, in your performance, like you have to go all the way. You have to push hard. You have to fully commit, right? That's just not how it is in most areas of life. Like you've got to start at the fundamentals and you've got to work your way up. And the thing is, like, people go, well, man, they'll talk to me and say, Seth, man, my back has been killing me. I know I need to do some stuff for my core. I know I need to get my glutes a little engaged. I know I do a little upper back mobility because I've seen you talk about it on social media and things like that. But the thing is, like, I just can't find an hour at a time to get in the gym, or I'm not able to get to pay for a gym membership right now, or this and that. I'm like, hey, if you can do 2 minutes of something every day, like your brain's not going to be like 2 minutes of core work, Seth. Like I'm going to make you worse.
Doesn't count.
I'll make you worse now. Like that was what are you even thinking about even trying to start doing 2 minutes of core work, right? But 2 minutes adds up, right? It adds up. So I've been playing the guitar for 25 years. And when I first started, I played really heavily for like a year, so much that I got kind of burned out on it. And then I would not play it for a couple of years, and then I would pick it up for a little bit, and then not play it for a couple of years and pick it up. So I'm like a moderately okay guitar player. If I told someone I was playing for 25 years, though, they'd be like, dude, why are you not on stage right now, right? The thing is, if I would have played 5 minutes a day for 25 years, I'd be rocking out right now. I would be an expert level guitar player, right? But because I felt like I needed to put in this heavy dosage back in the day in order for it to be effective, it burned me out, and it was something that was not sustainable. So that's that. Start where you are, do what you can. If you can get on the ground, you can do a plank, and you can do some glute bridges, and that feels good to you, and that's more than you were doing before, do it and be okay with it. And then when that feels good, build upon that and build upon that and build upon that. Whether it's performance, whether it's recovery, whether it's nutrition, little amounts, tiny habits, like they add up. The aggregation of marginal gains, little gains, but they build on top of each other. They aggregate together and they turn into big things. And that's the biggest. I'm going to say, I don't like saying roadblock. I like saying speed bump because most things in life are speed bumps. They look like roadblocks, and people identify them as roadblocks.
Tall speed bumps.
Yeah, people are like, I can't go to the gym. It's a roadblock. Or I can't, more like, I can't improve my health and performance. It's a roadblock. I've got all these roadblocks. It's like, well, they're only roadblocks, but let me roadblocks. There are speed bumps if it's like, hey, a roadblock is I can't go to the gym. A speed bump is, okay, I can do 5 minutes of mobility work. I watched this exercise, Seth did, or wherever I found it. I'm just going to commit to doing that one set every single day. When that feels good, I'm going to do more, and I'm going to do more. So that's it. Start where you are and do what you can.
That's perfect. And I just want to add one thing. The thing you said about sustainability on there,
Yeah.
I think is a big piece a lot of people miss. People want to, I'm prime person at this. I have to talk myself down off of things all the time, is I want to have this grand, awesome plan. But starting where you are, doing what you can, making sure whatever that plan is sustainable, is the true key to improving long term. It's very, very powerful.
Absolutely.
Well, awesome. That is all I have for you. Go ahead, plug. Actually, I just thought of this. We just told people start where you can, or start where you are, do what you can.
Yep.
Where can they learn what to do? Obviously, you have some things going on with Disc Golf Strong.
Yeah. So
where can they find you?
Yeah. So if you go to discgolfstrong.com, we have our social media as well. We post some videos on there, things to do. And like I said, you're going to look at it and be like, dead bugs, glute bridges, what is this about? Where's the barbells? We're starting where you are, do what you can, build those fundamentals, right? Beyond that, if you want to do more, we have the Inner Circle, which is like a monthly thing people can sign up for, get training programs for all different types of activities, just more exercises and stuff they can do. And we also have our Performance Academy, which we do like 2 to 3 times a year. It's a 6-week online academy. And so it goes through all those fundamentals, goes through prepared disc golf athlete, goes through the mobile disc golf athlete, stable disc golf athlete, prime disc golf athlete. We talk about warm-ups, things like that. So it's all about starting where you are, doing what you can, building up over time into that stronger, healthier, more resilient human and disc golf athlete.
Awesome. Seth, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you guys for watching.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jonathan.